Thank you, so welcome. Open session on planning, we have no members of the public here, obviously, except for, you're still here as a member, a member of the public. So I'm glad you've moved into the inner circle, as it were. Right, had anybody else expressed wish to come?
No, we had feedback about the 5G mast, but I invited him, but he's not chosen not to come.
Right, thank you. Right, so item 52, recording. Does anybody wish to make any additional recording? No, the one we've got. Apologies for absence from.
Councillor Gould, who is isolating. Councillor Pogson has symptoms of COVID, so he's isolating.
Right. So
I think it's getting more prevalent now, I don't know.
It is. It's not killing us, really.
Two of my sons made a mistake and had that bleeper thing put on the phones. And whether it's because they've been to somewhere where there's been just one isolated incident or something, but two of them got isolated this week. And it's just because they've got that app on the phone and they both went off on the same day, but they're in different parts of the country.
Well, it's three years of Holmfirth High School are currently closed.
I believe so.
Really? 3 whole years? 3 whole years.
I think when Julie said it a bit, she'd seen it on the on somewhere it was 2, but it's the 3.
Yeah.
right. We're looking to hear that, aren't we? And to be coordinating that.
So we're going to.
Right. Let's move on to receive members and officers' personal and disclosable pecuniary interests in items on the agenda. Is there anything?
I don't think there's any, but if there is anything, I'll
say when the time comes. Right. Any written requests for new GPR dispensations? No. Right. Should any items be discussed in private session? No. Right. So to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting, so we've all had them. So can somebody propose that we just confirm the minutes? Yeah. And seconded. I missed one.
No, that's this. That's that is it.
That is it.
That is it.
That is it. Thank you.
Could you sign it now then? Just
Do you mean? I see what. Yeah, I have a new system.
so
Thank you.
I'm going to try and get into the habit of doing it as we do it.
All this efficiency is unnerving.
I won't do each page out of that.
I can remember once before having to do a lot, but seems a long time ago. But you're saying them back to 1990. 2019, sorry, not 1990. I would say 1990 when I was chairman before. Yeah.
Okay, so we've confirmed I've signed the minutes of the previous meeting. I'll do the initialing later.
I don't go about that.
Item 58, completed Kirklees planning applications list. Right, can we note that?
Yeah.
Noted. Yep, noted. And then we move on to new planning applications, of which I actually checked with Richard for a picture and I saw there were only 19 on it. I couldn't believe it. It was true. Gosh.
And the one's duplicated from the sound.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
one's
Yeah.
duplicated, yes. So it's even less.
It appears to be duplicated unless it's somebody being clever with some form of
Right, so the first one is the Phase 8 monopole, which is also on the agenda later on, the last item. I asked to have it put on the agenda before it appeared on the...
Would you like to speak about it later?
On the planning list.
On the planning list, so we should talk about it on the
I
planning
think we might as well speak about it now, because that's people. Yeah. So, does anybody wish to give a view on this? Rachel?
I guess I recognise the fact that we need 5G infrastructure, but I'm not convinced it's in the most aesthetically suitable spot, because to my mind it would be better if it was potentially a bit further. I think my understanding is they need to be in a high area, so they're always going to be fairly visible. But just a bit further along at Sycamore Rec, I actually think it would be better if it was just off the road in the corner of the recreation ground, rather than right prominently on that corner. Because I know we've had some neighbours raise concerns about the visual. Well, people have raised different concerns. Some have been at visual, and I think 18 metres is really big
It's
compared
bad.
to a telegraph pole. It's huge, and I've seen one of these 5G masts in I think it was in Lockwood somewhere. And went, oh wow, they really are big. And it's quite difficult to know how to shield it. So I feel as if it was in the corner of a park where you've got quite big trees anyway, then potentially that might be a better solution and isn't far away from what we're talking about. And I know other people have raised so-called health concerns, but having done a bit of a look online, there's no evidence that that's supported. And ultimately, there's, you know, the things people are concerned about. If we want 5G, then you have to accept the infrastructure. But I do think potentially, without moving it too far, it could be less visually obtrusive.
Thank you.
I have a question arising from your point.
Pat, you, yeah.
Sorry,
You
was
had
it
a
me?
hand up earlier, didn't you? Yeah.
That I understand, I could be wrong, but I believe that 5G aerials need to be closer together than previous communications, as well as 12. So my only query on your point would be, I'm sure you're right about pleasing, but will it still work if it's 500 yards further on? I have no idea.
Paul?
Well, I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the siting. Whose land is it on? Is it on nobody's land? Is it on land owned by Kirklees Council? Is it land owned by the Highways Authority? Because I'm looking at this and thinking, well, why is it there? Is it there because they're going to get it there and they can put it there a lot cheaper than putting it on private property? And with what Rachel said about it being put somewhere else, closer to hand, probably the reason for the wreck is that the wreck gets used by children. So if it is potentially dangerous for that, I don't want to see this going where school children are going to go catching buses or being picked up from school, because they're all going to be walking past it. And if that is the case, I think it's totally inappropriate.
It's not.
Did,
Is it not dangerous?
No.
Because our grandson lives a few hundred yards away from there. I'm not saying it's close to him, but I don't understand the mechanics.
I think I'm going to ask Richard to come in first, but I guess we need to suspend standing orders to allow you to.
That was my
allow you
first
to
question.
speak.
Can I speak?
I'm assuming people are happy. Yes, thank you. Yes, Rich. Yeah, thanks.
I think I'd echo some of the comments that's already been made, but I've done a little bit of research on it, and they are very limited as to where to put these things because of the range of them. So when you read their blurb, they say this is the only place in the world it can go.
Yeah.
Perhaps I'm exaggerating a bit there, but that essentially is the argument. But visually, it's
It's an enormous price to pay for improved communication.
Now, there's one in Lancashire somewhere they've disguised as a tree, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And it actually looks quite effective. So I wondered if, if we have to accept that we're having these things, can we sort of try and push them into making it a bit more disguised?
Thanks. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, every so often you see one of these in the examiner cropping up in a different area. I think there was one over Kirkheaton way a few months ago or something like that. And local residents don't like them because they are massive. I didn't realise how big they were. I think in response to Rachel, I think I've read something before, I don't know if it's one of these, there's a lot of silly conspiracies about 5G, but they're saying that the trees aren't good with it and they chop down a lot of trees in some of the areas to get them, put them in place. So they probably wouldn't want them too close to things like that. And I suppose where this is going to go, it's going to be whacking big and tall and everything else on that side of the road. The other side of the road is some houses, but they're quite a bit away. So I don't really know what to say. Like wherever you stick this, no one's going to like it. And so I don't know what and if you limit it where you can stick them, I don't really know what the solution is. You can either stick with 4G and the poor solution, or I don't know why they can't come up with something a bit better with the technology, to be honest. But I don't really know what I suggest what the answer is. I don't think it is the right location, but where is the right location? Like at Cliff Wreck up there, there's some masts up there. I don't know if they're telecommunications or something like that. But with this, you might need another one nearby. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is.
I think, I mean, there was an awful lot of information given to us, including the one that held and the certificate. I did look, and apparently it's about 6 metres taller than the tallest street lights. It is absolutely huge.
6 metres.
Yes.
So
But,
it's nearly double
yeah,
the height.
Yeah, 12 as opposed to 18. But but I think it's quite a handsome thing. I mean, in terms of it's compared with the kind of the old style ones with the wings and the bit sticky, messy looking ones. I do think as a sheer pole, it is quite, you know, it has a certain grandeur about it. It isn't right on the junction either, because I think some of the residents were making comments about it being dangerous on the junction, but it is actually the far side of the bush shelter from there. So I think I'm inclined to agree with Rachel that perhaps if it could be moved perhaps further along that pavement.
It can, where it is now, if this is the new one, when they're installing it and when they're doing maintenance on it, it's going to cause an obstruction, either to the footpath or to the road. And I don't think it's the ideal place. Most farms that I know that had masts on, they've been taken away because they've gone onto this different grid. And I think this 5G is the main reason. And over the years, from getting nice amounts of money, I think majority had gone down to about £3,000 a year from about 10 or 12,000, which they were to give them originally. And that I don't know whether somebody somewhere has decided that they're going to do these on verges, and whether the council or the highways or authority or who gets payment for it, I don't know. But if you've got a telegraph pole in your field, you get paid a whale leave every year. With this, I don't know whether somebody's going to get paid or not, but it might cost them more if they put it on Kirkley's playing field.
Sorry, Tom and then back to Rachel.
One thing we should consider is that, as I mentioned earlier, my brother's house is it's quite close to where it is. It's just around the corner behind where the garage is, and my brother's house is listed. So this will be in proximity of a listed building, and you will be able to see it from the other side of the garage. It's going to stick out from miles away. So that's maybe something that we could consider. And if we did think about, and if we do choose to refuse the application, that could be something that we could know. Because there will be other listed buildings around there as well, wouldn't there? I'd imagine, like next door.
There'll be quite a few. All them cottages from the garage down to the school on that right-hand side of the road are all listed because the Weavers' cottages were the old Weavers' cottages. Whether there's any at the other side of the main road of that road, I don't know. But I know that row.
Is that little area as well? The other side of the garage is a little driveway. You can go down with some other little houses down there as well.
Yeah.
And some of them are quite old, aren't they?
They could well be.
So that might be something as well. Have Rich just written that down or something?
No, sorry.
I think I'd like to make a proposal, Mary.
Sorry,
Rachel's
Rachel's waiting to speak. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, in terms of I've got an image on my screen which I don't necessarily need to share, but you know, the edge of Sycamore Wreck is so close to where it is. I just think the difference between having something that's just over the wall, like here,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see, but the site's up here, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Just by virtue of the base of it being non-visible from the road, I just think means it won't be the thing that people see every time they drive up the road because it's set back slightly. And I don't it'd
be quite a bit lower down there as well.
It would be a couple of metres lower down, which
Yeah.
would slightly reduce its visual impact. Because you sort of think, I mean, it's a bit like imagining a pylon going somewhere, and it's just kind of like, well, if it's not in your direct line of sight for everybody who's driving up the road and down the road, and not immediately next to the bus stop anyway, which does lead to some issues about visibility for buses and kids waiting around it. As I said, I don't think there are any health concerns, but it's just, you know, people are all leaning against it and everything. But I think but I do think the park is close enough to mean that potentially you could really reduce the visual impact by just looking at that top corner of the park. I think we should ask for greater consideration of setting it slightly back to the road. If that was all private gardens, then I think it would be much more difficult to do. And I think what you were saying about them being disguised, it's so much higher, because we've got one that's disguised on, we've got mobile phone masks that are 4G, I suppose, which are disguised, like on the Cartworth side of the
I think there's one.
and there's others in other places, and I've seen them in Snowdonia where they're next to really tall trees, but we don't really have that many tall trees of that size. So
I think there's one like a pencil at New Mill Church.
maybe.
On the tower at New Mill Church they put one.
So I'm not saying we can hide it effectively, but I think by setting it back from the road, I just think it would cause less angst. But I think, in the end, we've got to accept, and it would be further away from the buildings.
Should we refuse it then and suggest that instead, or?
Yeah, I think so.
That was my proposal, that we refuse it as the site is not acceptable. The site is not acceptable, but would consider a site in a more, well,
Within the recreation.
Well, in the corner of the road,
Yeah.
where it's different.
Sorry, Pat. Yeah.
I don't think we should refuse it. I don't think we should be seen
Oh, yeah.
to be stopping
No.
decent broadband for the people of the valley. People will be incensed if we get in the way. If
Yeah.
we are seen.
yeah, they will.
And I agree with you about, I think we should approve it, but with a very strong request that we,
No, I don't think we can do that.
that there be more, if possible, it be moved to a less conspicuous, and we can detail it.
Mary, I think we refuse it because of the sighting and specify that it's a position and would prefer to see if there is to be one within that location, that area, to be in a more pleasing situation off the main road side, set in the open land further on the road.
Can we? So there's two things, aren't there? I mean, we're either opposing it or we're saying that. I always think to say we support in principle, but then say we want something else seems a bit illogical. But I think in this case, maybe that's what we need to do, to say we accept the need for a 5G pole, and there didn't seem to be suitable site, because that map that showed, I think, about 4 other possible sites, and they didn't seem to be any better.
Accept the principle then. Accept the principle that the need for this,
Yeah.
but refuse this application on its positioning.
So we object, but consider repositioning in the vicinity. Or
We're not against the 3G,
no,
the
okay.
whatever
Yeah.
G in principle, but I was just wondering whether there's anything more in the paperwork that's behind that would make a change of a decision from what we've got, but I don't think there is.
Will be ignored. I mean, Kirklees will override us.
Yeah,
As
but-
soon as
But we
it's
have to
ended.
make the point.
But we need to do this for the residents.
We
Think
need
of what
to,
the
yeah.
residents will.
We've got to do it for the residents.
And
Carefully
it
as
could,
can.
and it could be better, as like what Rachel suggested. I think we need to say we reject it because it should be. It could be somewhere much better nearby, which wouldn't be much more effort.
Yeah.
I don't know if they just haven't really. There must be a reason why they can't put it in the record. There must be a reason why.
It's
Well, I
because
think
it's
it's
going to
nearest
cost.
traffic.
But like,
It
yeah.
might be to do with services. We are talking over each other
Sorry.
again. Rachel.
Yeah, sorry. I would imagine they've proposed it there because it's easy land to access and it's where all the services will already be.
Yeah.
But I think we should go with the object
Yeah.
to the location proposed, because we feel the aesthetic impact of being right on the road is detrimental, and we want to understand whether it could therefore be located in the corner of the Sycamore Recreation Ground, where it's slightly lower and off the main highway, as recognised the importance of improved 5G infrastructure.
I'll second that.
It's where's the ground at that top side, isn't it? Of the wreck. There's nothing. It's not used for anything.
Can I just
If you look there on that picture, you can see where it could go. Obviously, I don't know infrastructure-wise, but you know, if you go in that corner and it's already several metres lower.
Yeah, but being lower is what they don't want. They've chosen it because it's higher.
Yes, but if
Well,
they want
it
it really
works.
high, they put it along the cliff front, wouldn't they?
Well, we can suggest it. I mean, they could move it further along that
They can.
pavement away from that busy
They
junction.
can put it higher
So-
places.
Can we, right, we've spent quite a while on this, obviously it's important, so Rachel's made a proposal
I'll
which
second
has
that
been
one.
seconded
Yeah,
by
I'm
Tom,
in
so
favour of it.
I believe Pat
I'll abstain.
or you're abstaining, right. But so our decision is that we're objecting, but suggest the pool is situated, so we object because of the aesthetic impact. And
Can we
suggest
mention the
pool
listed
is
buildings as well? The
really-
potential impact on listed buildings?
Yeah.
I know that's probably not really much of an argument, but I think if we are going to represent the residents, we should mention it.
It
We
is-
know it's for local knowledge, we should know this, and it's
I
something that could stop it potentially.
I think, Mary, if it's possible to put it in, it is the siting that we're objecting to.
Yes.
We're not objecting to the principle,
Yeah.
it's the siting.
Yeah. I
And
think
I think that's more the question. And if, as Pat says, the people of the Home Valley are complaining because we've objected to get this, we haven't objected to the 5G. We've objected to the siting of the mast.
Can I just check that our clerk? Could you just read out what you've got? Please? Just make sure.
I've got an audio recording, that's what
Yeah,
I've
I
got.
know you have.
So I've got that we object on the basis of the location proposed because of the aesthetic impact.
Yeah.
Am I going to suggest?
Yes.
Am I going
Yes,
to suggest
yes.
the corner of Sycamore Rec? Is it called something officially?
It's Sycamore, right?
Just call it
Okay. And
the nearest corner.
nearest corner.
Thomas had mentioned of
And also
neither
like to
listed
comment
building.
on the list that it may have an impact on the local listed buildings sited nearby.
That's the essentials, isn't it?
Use the phrase
Yeah.
listed buildings if you can get it in it.
Yeah, I will, yeah.
It's an expandable box.
And greater consideration to moving it back from the road over the wall, so setting it back from the road.
Yeah.
Are people happy with that? All the elements are there, aren't they? Right. Thanks.
But it ends if they put it in the wreck, it ends if they can't get to it because of the gateway into the wreck and they go into crash and whatever, so they can get into the maintenance and whatever.
True. Good. Thanks very much. Yeah, it's a lot
Wait
to.
and see.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. Right. Let's move on to number 2 then, which is Rachel's probably. Yeah. Which is 3 Glenthorpe.
Number 2, Lammerwell Road.
Lammerwell Road, yeah.
Dormer at back looked fine, provided materials are in keeping.
No? Are we happy to support? I thought it was
Yeah.
fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
support. And number 3, which is another Upper Home Valley, which is a certificate of lawfulness, single story extension. I thought this was unobjectionable. Yeah.
Is it a big extension?
No.
Because if it's single story,
No, it's a single story,
it could well be within permitted development.
It's a garden room.
Yeah. And 3 support. Right. Number 4, I don't know if anybody else had the same. The documentation we had was a bit confusing, I thought, because I think this was actually about just a minor amendment to an existing application which was approved. I think this was just the addition of a porch.
Yeah, I think so.
Did you think so too? Yes, it was
Yeah.
confusing.
That was what I assumed. I put support.
Yeah. Okay.
It looks as if it's something extraordinarily big because it's a side extension, side porch,
Well,
and detached garage.
that
So
was
it
yeah.
seems like it's a
That was a previous application from last year. Was all of that, and all they're asking is to stick a porch on the side. So I thought that was fine. Should
For heaven's sake,
are we
just
happy
get
to
the thing
support?
on.
Let's support this porch then. Thank you. And number 5.
I've got support for that.
It'll
It's
be,
people who are building a house who want to advertise themselves on their hoardings, so that's fair enough.
the new houses.
Yes.
For the new houses.
A large number of houses, but yes.
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 But it's the hoardings are the
Yeah.
least.
At least it works. It's a big estate.
I think we should refuse it and tell them that to put my signs up and let us sell them all for them.
So are we supporting? We support. I thought that was yeah, as you say, given the vast acreage that's been churned up with little sites.
But the one thing about it is it's poor quality land that's been developed rather than good green fields.
Okay, moving on to number 6, which is Branksome Mount in Bank Lane. Did anybody have a look at anybody? Yeah.
Looks okay.
Yes, I thought it looked okay. Anybody? Any dissent?
Can I shut that door?
Neighbours are very noisy, aren't they? Yeah, thanks, Rachel. So were you supporting?
Yeah.
Thank you. We do have another big one. Delays. And then the next one is a Brockhills one.
I had a problem with this. Every time I opened it on the Kirklees site, it froze my computer and I had to log out and shut down, so I never got to it.
Non-compatible.
But just that one, everything else was fine.
Strange. Yeah.
But it looks, I mean, it's a single rear extension. They're all building them in Brockholes.
Did you?
Yeah, it looks okay.
Looks okay. I thought it looked okay as well. So support.
It's again, Brockhills are working from home. They're wanting somewhere to have a little rear extension to put an office in.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? How things come through this committee, changing solution, economic mores. Right, let's move on to number 8, where we have 3 neighbourhood objections, principally about loss of light.
The 3 neighbourhood
Which
objections
perhaps-
appeared to be identical.
Yes.
And I
So-
think it was
Yeah.
one neighbourhood objection that was photocopied and sent round. I got support. I mean, it looks, and they were objecting on the grounds that there are already quite a lot in the street. Well, frankly, on the grounds that we've already allowed quite a lot in the street, we're obliged to allow this one.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. Anybody else have any dissent? No? So
I think we should raise the
support.
well, I'm happy to support it. I think we should say, but please address the
Address the
neighbours'
neighbours.
concerns
Yeah.
about overlooking.
When you look at a 2-storey rear extension and you think, when those houses were built down there by Kenneth Hall all those years ago, they were bought cheap houses, second homes for most people. When they got a bit more money, they had a garage put on, and the garage cost nearly as much as the house. Then when the family grew up, they had an extension over the garage, and that's the continuation of what's happened. And these now are making it that these houses are no longer for the affordable people.
Yep.
But on the other hand, it could be said that these people are extending their home, which is cheaper than buying another one.
It's a real conundrum, isn't it?
I mean, the neighbours' concerns were about loss of light, weren't they? I keep trying to imagine,
I can't see them make that
supplementary
much
planning
difference.
document that's got the stuff about extension or something.
If they want to
Retract it.
gain more light, they should have an extension that mirrors this on the back of theirs, and then they would be all right.
Sympathetic point. Right.
Because then they can see straight out at the back. They want the same bit.
Let's move on to number 9, which may be a little more contentious. Tom?
Yep. Well, I'll look at the new mill ones, and this one's quite interesting actually. There's a couple of complaints on there because they're going to make it into a bit of a playgroup area, and as a new dad, like I was talking to the missus about this, and I thought this would be quite good actually to take it into like 10 to 11:30, like during the week or something like that. But living next to a school like I do, I appreciate the noise that comes from the people, but I choose to live next to a school. That's my choice, and I know there's going to be some noise from kids playing outside. These people didn't move next to a playgroup, the playgroup has moved next to them, or it's coming next to them. And by the sounds of it, they've already started building it. But I think for an hour and a half a day, there's going to be 20 children playing outside. They can make a lot of noise. It's a bit of an interesting one, I'm not sure which way to go with it really. I kind of thought for an hour and a half a day, it's not that bad. But then again, I'm not the ones who are going to be living next to it. So I'm interested to see what people think.
Yeah,
There won't be all 20 of them out there playing at the same time.
No, it's only
for
outdoor.
all the time.
It is only outdoor, it's not indoor.
Oh, I see.
It's like an outdoor play, like a woody kitchen and things like that, and like climbing frames and other things. It's
I'm not sure which house it is, but what I see is you've got an outdoor playgroup, fine. Then you move from a playgroup to an after-school club or something like that, because the children grow up and they want to provide a service. I don't know where Glen Cottage is, Thomas. How far up Sheffield Road is it?
just past where the pub is on the left-hand side, the other side of the road.
The other side of the road. To me-
Glendale Mills, more or less.
Mm.
To me, we've got a situation where there's playgroups, there's toddler groups, there's all these other things. This is just an extension, this is just an outdoor one, which outdoor sounds, as Thomas has said, noisy. And I don't think it's fair on neighbours.
Thanks, Paul. Rachel.
Yeah, I think I almost sort of felt I had no comment on it because I wasn't quite sure about the business implications of it, because I felt like if someone had built all that playground, I mean, actually the application was a bit lacking in information, because on the plan of the house, it looks as if there's a fairly large garden, and you think, well, it depends sort of where it's sited, but the implication was it would be right next to the fence, according to what the neighbours were describing, whereas you think if it really is as big a garden as it looks from the just sketch plan, then potentially you could, you know, the children could be in the part that's not right next to the neighbours. But I do think it's a bit unreasonable on the neighbours to suddenly have this daily noise, but I'm assuming that any application to do it, you then have to have, you know, there'd be noise assessment. There must be things that an outdoor, effectively a business venture, because that's what it is, would have to pass. So it felt to me like something that specialist Kurt Lee's officers who would deal with applications of that kind would need to look at. So I didn't feel I objected to the principle of it, but I do agree that I think it would expand actually into other things, because if it's a good outdoor thing, you'd end up running it, you'd have holiday days, because kids would love it.
The
You know?
weekend thing.
Exactly. So, and I think the only way for it to go is up in terms of people using it and probably their business aspirations, and therefore I think it needs the like noise and environment team to look at it and for them to make a decision on the impact on neighbours. So I feel as if I'd probably err on the side of support the principle, but recognising neighbours' concerns, would wish Kurt Lees to advise on noise implications and impact on neighbouring properties.
I think I'm being too generous there, Rachel. I think if it's where it is and for what purpose it's for, I don't think it's fair, like Thomas says, on the neighbours, and that I'd like to refuse it as it is going to create an undue hardship and noise factor. If Kirklees wish to change to look at it in a different light, in the same light as you've just suggested, that's fine for them. But I think from this council we should be supporting the local people and not approving it. As much as I'd like it to be a nice little place for my grandson to go and play for an hour and a half every day of the week, and it wouldn't be far, especially if the club's open at the same time and Dad can go for a pint, that's fine.
10:30 in the morning.
But
I wish.
I don't know what day of week it's going to be, but if that be the case, I'm against it, and I think it should be refused, because I don't think it's in the appropriate place for this activity that they're wanting.
I'm happy to second.
Andy, did you have a view?
I think in principle, I think, you know, it's a fine idea that it's perhaps something that as a community we ought to be.
It's a superb idea.
There's always a crying need, isn't there, for...
It's a superb idea, but it's in the wrong place.
So are we...
I'm not that familiar with the location, I have to say, so I wouldn't really be able to comment much on that. But, you know, is there such a thing as an ideal place? Kids are going to be noisy wherever they are.
There's plenty of places they can go.
Yeah, and there's one thing, I mean, seems to have been a big history here with the neighbours, and there's one, but as somebody said, if you've got 20 children, then you're going to have perhaps, you know, possibly 10 adults with them as well, and it's quite...
I did wonder what they'll do with these kids when it rains.
I do remember last year an application. It's a bit different to this, but it's similar. The boot and shoe in schools, where they were going to expand the beer garden, and instead of having loads of noisy kids outside, you get loads of noisy adults outside. And it's similar because the residents that live there did not buy the houses or live there to be near the beer garden. It's like if the beer garden comes afterwards, the beer garden's there already and you move next to it. I know what's
No?
But if the beer garden moves in next year or the kids move in next year, for an hour and a half a day, I can find it difficult. But like Rachel said, if it's successful, it's going to expand more and more and more and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what the complainants are worried about. And it's only probably a few people who will be affected by it who live near to it. But they didn't get their houses to be next to that. And in some ways, if you've got something like that next to your house, it can probably even knock the value off your house. People might be... it's not a nice way to look at it. But it's just not how I would think about it, or how we would think about it very nearby. I bought a house next to a school, so I know it's going to be noisy there during the day and at kids' times and that, but that's my own problem. It's not these guys' problem.
Tom, what I will say is that you've talked about the boot and shoe as an example against this. At least those people moved near to a pub, and the pub was there first, whereas this is something that's been brought new into a different area. There is other playgroups, there's other groups and things in that area. We're going to come up with another thing now. It's this recreation situation at places like this, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more fields. There's that many people wanting places for dogs and all this and the other, and I think it's like children, that it's infants, and dogs are put in the same light, that they need somewhere to have exercise. And I like this idea. I like children to get mucky. I think that's the one thing that people do tend to keep them too clean. And this outdoor activity, to me, suits, but not in the centre of New Mill.
So I think
Cars, you see, parking to drop children off, another thing.
They've got parking across the mill though. They've actually got parking in across there, which would be work for them. They're going to rent a space at the mill at the car park there. It used to be the gym, I think. So they would have had that. But
In the gym there now?
No, it's been gone for
It's
ages.
been closed for a while. So I think we have a consensus here, which is that we're objecting because of the impact on the neighbours, but perhaps we would like to welcome the idea.
What I would say as well is, if it is to go through, I think one of the things we suggested about a pub was to put some kind of sound barrier in there, plant some trees at the edge of the barrier, try and make it a bit better for them. But yeah.
No, I don't think that's a work. I think we have to refute.
Oh yeah, but like I'm just saying, like if they were to do something like that,
It's basically impact on adjoining property.
Yeah. Okay, we're happy with that. Good. Thank you. Let's move on to number 10. There's a strange anomaly here that one of the documents was actually for a completely different property. Somebody had obviously attached the wrong document at some time. Right.
Yeah, this was
It's
one of
Hopeless
mine.
Central. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that looked fine. As you said, I opened one of the documents and went,
I think we've
that's
done
very different.
Yes,
I notes together went,
But he
oh,
just
wrong
tried to
address.
reconcile
It's in our
And we had one at Mossview recently. Was it Mossview Mossview or the
We've had
one next,
adjacent to Mossview.
or the one next to it. That's,
It's actually off Slack Lane, isn't it?
it's on Slack Lane, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I
So
know Mossview it was
So I'm not
Derry
disappointed.
Crossing.
I thought it was fine too. Okay, we have to
Yeah.
support
Yeah.
that. Support. Okay. Right, the next one is another farm barn. One farmhouse, home farm. Any views on this one?
Yeah, have a look at this one. It's one of those where there was an old paper factory, it's called Rosemount Paper Factory or something, where there's very, very posh
Yeah.
houses in a sort of private lane. It looks quite nice for the aerial view. I didn't realise it had a nice sort of spiral shape. But and I think they're just putting in a new storage shed, but they're making it look very nice. Nice beams and everything. It looks lovely. So I think it looks great. Yeah. It's for their agriculture. Well, it's an agriculture. Probably their lawnmowers.
Mini
It's on
tractor
lawnmowers
thing,
going.
yeah.
Not everybody puts a planning application in for a storage
No,
shed, they just
no,
put one up
So
usually.
this isn't just any storage shed. This is a very nice
It's the
one.
most
They come in
superior.
designer up there, yeah.
They want us to admire it.
The most superior.
It's not going to become a bungalow in 2 years' time.
Way too small for that.
We can only go on the documents in front of us, Paul. Right, so we're supporting this elegant shed. Thank you. And we'll run through, we have got a bid to come now, haven't we? Yeah,
This is the same, is it, this
it's
next
the
one?
same one, we already have it from. Residential gardens, number 12, we skip over.
So, same as well.
Number 13 on Bill Lane. Any views?
I thought that looked fine.
I thought it looked
Formation of off-road parking, that's a bonus, isn't it?
well, anything to take.
I mean, it's not often we see that, and I think that's very commendable.
Yeah, there's no space to turn, they'd have to reverse either in or out.
Yes, sir.
At least it would take a car off there, which would please me. Right, so support?
Support, yeah.
Support number 13, thank you.
Is this one that's been built that shouldn't have been at Scholes, this extension?
Sounds like it.
Do you know it, Paul?
No, I don't. I know where Oaktree Avenue is. And I can imagine something being done at the rear of those houses without anybody seeing it and anybody objecting.
It looked inoffensive to me. I thought it was okay to support.
Support.
Yes.
Support. Right. Okay. So the next one may delays a little longer. Right. I think in our packs we had an objection which came from Councillor Charles Greaves, which was also amongst the massive number of 55 neighbourhood.
Across a lot of different...
Has it been approved with 55?
No,
sorry, it was
55 letters
55.
of objection.
Oh, I thought they'd been approved before for this house.
No, 146 houses. I mean, I think Charles has pretty much summed it all up. He's done all the homework, he's written it down in his email.
Yeah. Right.
I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page with the sort of detail of it. Is it on because in the local plan it was identified as a housing site for 124 houses.
Yeah.
So obviously they've bumped up the numbers. But out of the 146 that they've now got, there are 117 which are sort of normal market houses, which are all mixture of 3 and 4 plus bed. Then there's 14 affordable houses for sale, and then there's 15 that are affordable / social rent. So there is quite a
Yeah.
So actually there's a reasonable, so that's 29 properties at 146 are affordable in
That's
some
not the
way.
same as it said on the application. There was
Yes.
only 17 that weren't 3 or 4 bedroom on the application.
Oh, no, well some of those will be three bed, but it's the tenure of the housing. So actually I think, personally I think we should comment on that being a positive thing, because I think that is a positive thing.
Yes.
But I just had a few comments. I mean, I know Councillor Greaves has covered certain things like connectivity to Brockholes and Smithy Place Lane being a nightmare, which it is. But one of the things I thought we should really raise is they have an energy statement, which aside from any biodiversity or comment on badgers, was really their only comment on sustainability, and all they talk about there is fabric, by which when you read it, it seems to imply it's just insulation and what materials they use, and light bulbs. I think that's pretty rubbish. Obviously they've got electric, they have to do electric car charging points, but I want to know, why aren't they talking about having solar panels on all the roofs? Why aren't they talking about the district heat pump?
Yeah.
You know, why aren't, because they're looking to build over the next, I think it was up to 2026, and yes, potentially hydrogen boilers. There needs to be something that's looking at district heating, for example. There's lots of options that a development of that size really ought to consider. And I think it's a bit poor just to say that they'll have very good insulation and LED light bulbs. That's really weak.
A bit weak.
So I really think we ought to say, you know, they need a full explanation of how they're going to reduce carbon through use of green renewable energy technologies, not just the fabric. And then obviously there's all the issues about waste by council agrees.
Yeah.
I see the point, and it's obvious to keep the costs down to a minimum without having to put these extras on. And all these extras come out of some major developers' profits.
Which is fine.
And I think that's what it amounts to. If there's 146 houses rather than 120 some, it's obvious that the extra 20 some to compensate for those that they're providing for social housing and whatever. If it is that they provide so many social houses and so many for rent and whatever to give away to the housing association of their choice to sort the job out, I think it's obvious that they're putting these extra 20 some on, and if 120 some was what Kirklees had allocated for that site is allocated, that site is better developed than having some of the, as I've said before, better quality ground and whatever in the area. We've got a problem with the access, according to Charles and his report, but we're stopped from going down Holly Street at in excess of 80 and 90 miles an hour years ago when they put some restrictions on. As a kid racer, that used to be the racing place, did Holly Street. And I'm not saying I'll probably go down there at 30 miles an hour now, whereas at one time it was how fast can you go down there, or talking to your mates and saying how fast have you gone down on Holly Street. To have roundabout in the middle of it is going to keep the level of traffic, and well, not the level of traffic, the speed of traffic.
Isn't a roundabout?
Indeed, I thought they were a roundabout.
They're just pulling out onto the main road.
No.
There's a ghost island.
Sorry, Andy's
Ghost Island is
Andy's been waiting to speak for a little while, so please.
Just a few points, some of which have already been mentioned, but yes, in the local plan it's 724, so whether we can sort of claim it's overdevelopment to some extent. It seems to me that the only reason that it's been refused before, and I think it's at least twice, isn't it, was on highways, and this was because of the access from Smithy Place Lane. From what I can see, they've solved that problem, or they claim they've solved that problem. So it would seem to me that they've solved the only problem that was stopping them developing anyway. And maybe it's about concentrating on getting the best out of what we're going to have anyway. Yes, it's green credentials, I think, are hopeless. There's 38 kilowatts of PV amongst 146 houses. It's dreadful, isn't it, in this day and age, on a new development that goes through 2026?
Yeah, something like that. 25.6.
Surely we can push them to do more on that front. And can I think we mentioned this last time, that can we use the neighbourhood plan to that end? I don't know how much notice they have to take of that, but...
Well, it's... Sorry, I think yeah, they should take notice of it because it's now gone through the exam. So.
What Kirklees have a scheme for that?
Paul,
Sorry.
Tom has been waiting.
Yeah, I'm just finding it strange how Kirklees find it okay to put this on the local plan for 124 houses, and then they refuse it on highways because the roads aren't suitable for 124 houses worth of cars pulling out there. It's and it's a difficult solution. I don't know how you can. I haven't looked at the plans this time, I must admit. But I suppose you can make a really wide junction there or something like that. But you're still going to have to pull out onto a busy road. I think the only way to probably improve it would be to lower the speed limit down to 30, stick it on a little bit further on until you get to the where you can let them out from. And stick a speed camera there and do some speed bumps. But the planners wouldn't do something like that before the highways people to do. So it's all very strange. And as well, like, so a minute, wait. The 19 low cost houses, for somebody who was looking to buy houses in the last few years, like I've done, like new developments, like at Skull was the cheapest house in the big development in Cross Lane. The cheapest house there was 220,000. Down in Waldale, where we've done some on Stony Bank Lane, the cheapest ones there with the different things, incentives you could have was 180,000. That's not low cost. So new houses, like I say, new houses which are small and are low cost. New houses are not low cost because you pay a premium because to buy a new house. You buy a new house, like I could buy an older house like I did. Well, you're getting cheaper. But new houses, when they say low cost, it's a myth. It's not true to me.
Not cheaper, Thomas. Less money.
Yes.
The thing that you've not noticed, Dom. You haven't been on this council long enough, but over the last 40 years, I've seen that many new plans, and they've always made sure, and this is Kirklees' inability, but whether it's common sense from their point of view that they don't want any housing, there's 40% of all housing that they allocate is land without access, so that it can't be developed. And you've got to make a way into it. A lot of sites, they've been where they've been bought, and then they've bought a house to not be able to make the entrance in. And it's lots of places like this, and this site is another example. It's one they've got on their allocation, so they've got their allocation of X hundreds of houses, but they know full well that that's not going to be taken up. So these people can spend the next 10 years keeping them busy by making new applications. And Kirklees Council have been very good at that for a long time.
Right, can we, thanks Paul, can we come to a decision on this? Are we objecting to the plans as they currently are, or yeah, sorry, who was first? Rachel, okay.
I was going to suggest we do refuse it, particularly on the basis of the large number of neighbours' objection. I think it would be slightly odd to support it. But I think we should specifically list the key things, which I think are
the number of houses,
well, we can
more than the plan allows.
Yeah, I think we can say we're concerned at the significant number of extra houses and the impact that will have on traffic and local services. Then I think we should state that we think the sustainability information is very poor and reference our neighbourhood plan policies, and which I know we've quoted before.
Yes.
Sense about district heating and solar PV and all those things. Then I think we should say we're concerned on the impact. Whilst we recognise there's a new access road, we're still concerned about the impact on Smithy Place Lane. Because ultimately the design will still mean that anyone going from the estate going towards Brockholes will pull out onto Smithy Place Lane, and it is it's a horrible lane to drive down, because you always meet someone and have to reverse, and you think if you've got another huge number of cars coming down there, it's going to be very difficult. And then what was the thing? And the lack of pedestrian connectivity through to Brockholes. I know that's something Councillor Greaves has raised, which is that it sort of talks about its connectivity to Brockholes and the local shops, and then actually there's no evidence that you could get there.
The local 2.5 shops that rock on.
Yes, I forgot, yeah. Was it school though?
Have they got doing that still?
Yes, the school.
I don't think they've even got
One
2.5.
will be a sandwich shop.
They've got a sandwich shop, they've got a convenience shop.
And a
And
hairdresser, they've got a hairdresser's,
Yes.
a sandwich shop and a
And they've got-
grocer's.
It's
And they've got
takeaway.
school, so that...
Yeah.
Two pubs and a bowling club.
It's still there.
Two pubs and a bowling club as well.
Yeah, I knew there was.
And a railway station, that's not
And
bad.
Indeed, the railway station,
Yes, I used to use it. Right,
which is
So-
a significant factor for this
It is.
development.
Oh yes.
right. So is the committee, are we happy to we're objecting to this, but in specifying those the list of things that Rachel has just,
Yeah.
but also they do want to make a positive statement about the inclusion
Yes.
of affordable housing, which
Yeah.
seems to be at a reasonable number, at
Yes.
a reasonable level.
They claim 20%, which is what's recommended.
Yeah.
Yes, I thought that was reasonable. So to make up that positive statement, is everybody happy with that?
That's the law for set. My concern is this extra 20 houses. If there were the 120 whatever Kirklees had recommended on their map, I'd be saying fine. But a lot of what Kirklees did, there was some land that I was involved in, and there were going to be 8 houses on this land. And Kirklees had it down as 2. One for each of the 2 fields. And then when the planning application came in, it came in for 14 houses.
So just on that point then, because the indicative capacity was 124 and this is 146. I mean, their argument, they countered this argument by saying that because they brought down the size of the houses, so they'd actually get more houses onto the site than originally. Do we want to challenge the along with the list of things that we don't like? Do we want to add the fact that we feel it's overdevelopment beyond the indicative capacity?
Yes, I do.
I think it's
Yes,
because of the
as a
highways
principle.
impact.
Yeah. So
It's
It's really
already
not,
identified.
yes.
Not just because of smaller
Yes,
houses doesn't mean that there aren't more of them.
No.
no.
I mean,
It's already extensification by that extra 20 on top of the
that's
items.
extra
On
cars,
top
extra
of
people.
the people, the things you feel ought to be included in those
Yeah.
budgets.
Right, I think we've got that then. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. The next ones are straightforward, simple, I would say. Moving on to number 16, which is the old dairy on Oldfield Road, which is...
I've got support. I mean, it's in a conservation area, so
Yeah.
we need the conservation officer to, but it looked all right to me.
Yes, Yes,
I thought where that farm was in particular, I didn't think it was in the conservation area.
Well, they've said
No.
in the application that it is. So.
Oh, right.
right, so
Yeah.
support?
Yeah.
The next 2 are both listed building consents, and we've agreed with listed building consents that we send a standard reply saying no comments, that we are defer, that's the right word, to no observation, we defer to the decision of the police officers, so that applies to number 17 and 18. Just to explain, Andy, we've been trying to cut down the amount of time it takes going through some of these, particularly the kind of inoffensive small extensions. So we tried quite hard and came up with what we thought was a workable way of doing that, but in the end it kind of boiled down to it doesn't actually affect many of our applications. So.
The only thing that's changed is that all the dormer windows we used to get applications for have become first floor extensions
Yes.
of garages.
Well,
A lot of those dormer windows are permitted development now, I think.
now, this
Because they're under a certain size.
number 19 is very close to me. I walk past it 2 times a day usually. But it's actually in Hunford Central, and it's the glamping. You see, this is another trendy thing, a glamping pod, right?
Is there plenty of parking?
There is quite a lot of parking. It goes along the side of the house. It's the last of a row of 3. There's a terrace of 3, and it's the end one.
All I'm thinking is if you get
Parking's
2
not a
families go, and you've got for 2 cars besides the normal for the property, it could be limited parking on there.
Yeah, let's see what Rachel had to say. Has to say.
Yeah, I thought it was quite an intriguing one actually. I haven't come across a glamping property, but someone got on before. I mean, they say it's for private use, for friends and family visiting, but I've no doubt it will in due course become an Airbnb. I thought there seemed to be parking there, and I couldn't really see why there was a problem
No,
with it.
it's just the overgrown Ballardy fields, like
So it's
we've got
quite a large
of-
garden.
quite about, yes, they've cleared a lot and it's all overgrown. So I was wondering about the water supply, but that's not our consideration. It does have a separate septic tank, which is
Water supply to one of these won't be a problem with it because they'll get it from housing itself.
yes. So I just
They just have to put an extension
I
from there.
I can't see any reason. There's no reason
No.
to
I mean, it is in the end only a fancy tent.
Well,
Oh no, it's a bit more than that. It looks like a
Oh
hobby.
no!
Quality shed.
I know,
Dear
I've
Lord.
looked at it, but I mean,
Fancy shed.
Hello.
a fancy shed.
Not
Yeah,
quite as
right.
fancy as the
So
other.
it won't have
Yeah.
sewerage and all that stuff, or it might not.
Well, it's got a septic tank, so
Yeah.
I presume.
Are they on the main sewer up there?
So are we say? Well, the main house will be, but I guess they're not putting this pod on.
I'd support it.
Let's support. Okay, we support it.
Yeah.
That's it. Fine. Excellent. Right, that's our 19. Our
Not
19.
on the grounds that we're allowed to come and have a nosy round when they get it done.
Well, there's a public footpath which goes along the side.
All right.
So-
I wonder if they
So we
don't.
all need to come to your
I wonder
house
I
for
wonder if
tea or
they don't have to
something.
pay a water rate if they put a septic tank in. They might have to pay a water rate for that particular unit.
Right, right, okay, let's move on to the second page of the agenda, item 60. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. Kirklees Council Planning Officer's decisions. There were 2 where we had a difference of opinion, I suppose. The Hagwood Stone Quarry, which Kirklees refused because this land was unstable and harmed trees. We supported in principle.
Well,
which I think
unstable,
is
yeah.
straight. That's what they said.
Hmm?
That's what they said. And the other one was for Myrie Lane, where we opposed because it was Netherthorn, for the Netherthorn Myrie Lane.
That was about the walls.
I'm demolishing a wall that Kirklees seemed not granted it. Didn't seem to be.
Well, they seem to say the wall wasn't in the conservation area, which I think I thought it was. So.
Right. Okay, moving on to neighbourhood plan and update from Rachel.
Yes, right, where we're at with the neighbourhood plan. The examiner has just issued his final report, which was issued last week. So Kirklees have received that, and obviously we've received it. Our planning consultant is therefore busy putting all the modifications that have been requested into the plan, so that there will then be a final plan, basically, which then can be circulated and everyone can see what it looks like. And Kirklees, I was hoping Kirklees would give me an update by today, because I asked them if they would, of when they'd be taking it to Cabinet, because they have to take it through their internal processes to get approval that Kirklees approve for it to then go to referendum. There's been no indication throughout that Kirklees won't allow that to happen. In theory, they could say, no, we don't believe in it, but that would be a little bit odd. We've done a lot of work with all their officers to agree wording where we have to disagree. So I think basically we're moving towards knowing a date for when we would get Cabinet approval at Kirklees, and then that then triggers when we'd have a referendum. So I suppose the main things to note are that the examiner has issued a final report which basically recommends that the neighbourhood plan move forward to referendum with those modifications. That's pretty
Excellent.
So it's
Well done.
nearly done.
Can Kirklees still be a thorn in our side then? If
Theoretically,
if
yes.
it goes to their cabinet and the cabinet decides they don't want us to have anything, could they still block it?
Theoretically, but if that were to happen, we can then, there are processes you can then follow to challenge that, given that we've
Yeah.
worked with them, and ultimately the argument to give to any councillors on that cabinet who don't want it to progress any further would be, well, it has to go to referendum of the local people who, under a democratic process, decide if they want to adopt it for the valley. So it's a little bit undemocratic.
It still could cost a lot of money to go to a referendum to be the council if the Kirklees decided to be that way what they minded.
No, but we wouldn't be allowed to take it to referendum unless Kirklees.
We couldn't.
If Kirklees would have got a problem, they would have had a problem by
Yeah,
now.
they would have raised it.
I
right?
think it's
I
very
don't know,
unlikely.
knowing Kirklees, they could just
No,
be
no.
keeping the power.
I think we have to give the officers credit the
that
Kirklees Planning Department given this is their first neighbourhood plan to work on, it has been a very tortuous process,
yeah,
but I think we've eventually found a common path, which has then got us to wording which the examiner is happy with, we're happy with, Kirklees are happy with, there's been a bit of compromise, but fundamentally the key elements of the plan are still there, and that's what matters.
marvellous.
Good. That's excellent.
So as soon as I've got some dates, then obviously I wanted to be able to report them today. I can't.
Thank you.
But
Thanks.
you'll be hiring a room and inviting everybody in and doing
I will be having a
it.
party.
Well, not just a party, you'll be doing a, how do we call it, a documentation to everybody to tell them how it's working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then they'll all turn around to you and say, oh, we don't want that.
I hope not.
No, but
Right,
you
let's,
know the line.
Yeah, I know.
let's move on to the Peak District National Park Authority. We're pleased to know that there's a great application with the railway turntable thing. They didn't like it either.
But they refused to do the one that we wanted.
And they refused the other one as well. Yeah, they said it.
But I can see that.
But what I thought was quite interesting when I looked at their decision notice was that failure to address climate change and sustainability was part of that refusal, and I thought that was really good. And they spoke about a document, was it CC what? CC1, I think. You know. So obviously. I think I knew this already, but the national park seems to doing really well in terms of the climate, trying to address the climate emergency. So I thought that was really good. So obviously they have documentation that's worth looking at, if you wish. Right, item 63 is the one we've already dealt with. Turned up on the new planning maps. So we're now at the last item, 64, which is the path along the side of the factory, the cricket pitch, and the bowls pitch, bowls green, sorry, long word, which is. So we're asked to decide what we want to do, or whether we want to do anything. When this came up, apparently it was 2018 when Kirklees started to make this to have this listed as a definitive footpath. And at that point, the parish council, we said that the councillors remembered it had been used as public right of way for they called it public right of way, probably not the correct term, for at least 50 years. So that was the response in 2018. I guess most people know, but the three landowners are objecting to the designation of that path as a restricted byway. So it's
Who are the landowners down there?
It's the factory, the cricket club, and the bowls club.
The foundry.
The foundry, yeah. All three of them are objecting.
Because
I
always remember.
It's gone to the Secretary of State. It's at that point.
I always remember going down to the cricket field and going and parking in the field behind the cricket field by the bowling green, and then going to the playing fields at Sands.
But you can go through, I mean, there's a
You,
path-
he used to go to drive down there. I know when I watched lads playing football down there, who went down that way.
That sort of answered.
Sorry, Andy,
But this is the path that gets you to Sands, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is.
to the
I know
far.
we use it on Bonfire now. We Rotary run Bonfire there, and we use that access. But I have noticed it's now gated.
It's the far side of Sands that it used to come through. Not
Yes.
across the river.
If
Yeah.
they choose to close that
Yeah.
gate, you can't get through now.
No.
I didn't know what the status
Yes,
was
yes.
of that.
I got stuck there once. I was trying to get to the gym and I had to go the way around.
So is this still under? This is still
It's still
a
under.
live issue. Then?
Yeah, it is a live
Oh,
issue. Yeah, nature.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's sort of been kicked around for years because the concerns from the Foundry and Cricket Club point of view is antisocial behaviour and graffiti, and I've had people set fire to bits of the front of the Cricket Club because not always young people, but I think from the graffiti that has been, I think it has been young people have tended to congregate there and cause mischief. So then you've ended up with, as you said, you've put the gating so that then one day, so if you close it one day a year, then you stop the
Yeah.
get it right, don't you? But I think, I mean, it's as we said back in 2018, it's been used for decades as a way to, and it's just everything about it is just a logical route through to the key large recreation space of home birth, and to it's just it feels like an obvious route. And whilst I sympathise with the problems that they have with antisocial behaviour, I'm not actually sure that making it almost like a dead end would help anyway, because I think people will still just keep
They'll
pushing
access where it's
through.
at.
But it gives them somewhere to hide if it's a dead end.
They are-
There are people passing.
The only problem I see there, from the point of view of the cricket club, not the Foundry, is when it's match day and people are walking on there, it can either affect the eye of the
Behind the bowler's arm.
well, not particularly the bowler's arm, it's going to be the other side because the ball the other way. But it is distracting having a lot of people walking through. And also, if there's somebody there that's got a decent bit of wood, they could be hurting somebody who walks past and is walking past and doesn't notice, and the ball comes and hits them in the rear hole and down they go.
Tom.
Yeah, but that's the main problem. Like, I've walked a few times through recently, and one of the times we sat down and had a couple of drinks from the cricket club because it was a nice sunny day, so we decided to sit there.
Yeah.
So it's a real problem to get with a ball or whatever, but I think it's important. Oh, I totally agree with what Rachel said, basically. Like, it's a logical route through, and it's really sad that people do graffiti and cause problems for the cricket club and for the Foundry, and it's a shame, but if you're going to stop the path there, it'd be a shame for everybody else. It's like if you spoiling it for everybody else.
Yes.
But it's a difficult situation. I don't know how the cricket club can resolve it, or maybe put some CCTV there. Probably won't stop hogs and put the hoods up or whatever, or whatever does it. It's a really difficult situation.
It's not long since they were going to move the cricket field up New Road because they got planning permission to move it up to New Road, and there was going to be a supermarket put there, wasn't there?
Well, the rumours about it, weren't there, years ago?
So, I mean,
No, supermarket bought it.
the decision in front of us is are we going to send anything really to the Secretary of State who's deciding on this issue, or are we just going to just leave things be? Reg.
Can I just clarify, what's it officially seeking to turn into? Is it to a public,
It's
is it a public byway?
It's turned it into a restricted byway.
Restricted means
Restrict. I
What
did
does that
look this
mean?
up. It means that you can take a bicycle, you can take a horse, you can take a carriage, but not a motorised vehicle.
Oh,
You
right,
can
okay.
walk. It's any means of movement that with no
What about the
motor.
motorised bike? Because a lot of these bikes now are motorised, aren't they? They're electric.
Well, let's not get onto the scooter.
Electric bikes and scooters.
So
I'm not on about scooters, no, I mean the electric bikes. 'Cause
So,
the amount of people I see coming past our house, and I think, how are they going to get up that hill? And then I realise that they've got an engine on that bike.
Yeah, of course. So the Kirklees is requesting that is made into a restricted byway, which
rather than a private.
rather than just a footpath, yeah. Rather than being private, yes. So do we wish to support that
I think we should support it.
request?
Yeah.
Yes?
Shall we mention what we said
Shall
before
we?
about 50 years of knowledge of being used as a...
So should we agree on a fond word for a statement? I was just fully in support, I guess.
I think support it as it is a well-used,
As a well-used,
access
yes.
to Sands Recreation
Of
Ground and facility.
long-standing that
Yeah.
we're aware from
Yeah,
2018 it's been
it
used for these
50
50 years.
And
Yes, but it is
Manchester
very
Union
well
said
used.
that,
We use it all.
And
I use it
it's
all the time. It's-
I think for pedestrians as well, you wouldn't want to be walking on a main road, would you, to get into Sands?
No, it's not much.
It's far, it's far
I know
better.
I'm
It's far.
biased here, but when we have a bonfire, you know, probably a third of the people that go there
Yeah.
go that way.
It's far better. Far better. Far better.
So
It's very
it's, sorry,
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, I think it's worth making a point that it offers a safe pedestrian
Yes.
access from the from the recreation ground into
Yes.
Firth from whichever direction that is. What is it? North east.
Yeah.
Because I know when I used to live in Netherthorpe,
Yeah.
I'd walk down New Road and I'd never walk along the main road. I'd always cross over into Sands and then come along
Yeah.
and push chair through and it's much better,
Yeah.
much safer way to go. So
And
so
as
I
you
think
said,
those
as you said from
recognised
the bottom,
areas-
if in the car park across here, to go across the road, Bridge Lane, just that little bit, rather than, and then go down that. It's a lot better walk than going down, especially if you go into Sands to recreation or to the swimming pool.
So if Richard and I agree on the formal words and yeah, to send to Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. With that. Happy with that?
Right.
Good. Well, thank you, everyone. Sorry, Rachel.
Sorry, I was just going to raise a question which might be something that would need to be put on a future agenda, but I'm just struck by, we've had quite a lot of, obviously there's lots of big housing developments going on, and every single one has a traffic report that tells you that incrementally it's not going to make any difference. But clearly, incrementally
Yes.
is going to make a difference.
Yes.
And I just wondered if if it's worth us, and as I say, may need to go on the next agenda, but writing to Kirklees Highways just to say, you know, we're aware that the key junctions, and I'm not talking Homefirth Town Centre, because obviously there's a plan there, whether it makes a difference, I don't know, but anyway, there's a plan there. But there's New Mill Square has been known as a traffic hotspot for years,
Yeah,
and people always talk about, and there have been studies done and whatever, but does Kirklees have a position on, are they raising money with which to do anything about it, or not? And likewise around Honley Bridge. And I think I've just noticed that, I mean, and I know it's in the news and everything that more people are driving, so people aren't using public transport, and there's reasons why more cars are on the roads after COVID, but I just feel as if these large developments actually, it would be reassuring if we knew that Kirklees was at least aware of those key sites which are getting more traffic, and you just see that anecdotally, and to get some understanding of what their plans are for those, or even how they feature on traffic hotspots. Because it's like even going through, I know it's not in our area, but go through Lockwood, you see how there is, I think, a plan for Lockwood. I don't know where it's got to, but I know there is one. And you think, well, jolly good thing there is, because you always sit in bigger and bigger queues when you go there. But I don't know if there are equally plans for Honley Bridge and New Mill Square, but I think
It's
we should ask.
what I stated though earlier, Rachel, that Kirklees, when they do the map, they've got to get X thousand houses on that list, and then they say, well, we can't put any new ones on until we've used the old ones up. And a lot of the old ones, the problem is they can't use them. They can't get into the sites. The sites are not capable of being worked. And it's what you're just saying now about these road infrastructures that are causing that problem. I don't know how they're going to go.
Well, that's why
I don't know how they're
some
going to go in
reassurance
Netherton.
that the highways
When that one in
department-
Netherton goes through, I don't know how they'll cope with that.
It'll be a nightmare.
It will.
Right, so